The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a deep hum. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked through them, her black diplomatic uniform sharp against the alien architecture around her. The chamber was huge, bigger than most human cities, with curved walls that stretched up into darkness. Strange lights floated in the air, casting shadows on the faces of delegates from 47 different species. Lisa had been Earth's voice in this chamber for 12 years. She had negotiated peace treaties, trade agreements, and crisis resolutions. She had watched species rise and fall, seen wars prevented and disasters avoided. Today felt different. Today felt like an ending. The Zentari who ran the council meetings gestured for silence with all four of their arms. Their translator devices hummed to life, turning their clicking sounds into words every species could understand. The emergency session will now begin. We gathered to address the human question. Lisa took her place at the human delegation table. Behind her sat three other humans: Dr. Peter Davis, her science advisor, Commander Rick Stone, military liaison, and Janet Mills, the trade representative. They had been her team for years, working together to keep humanity's place in galactic society secure. The chamber filled with noise as delegates shifted in their seats. Some species breathed through gills, making wet sounds. Others had mechanical parts that whirred and clicked. The Vorkani delegation sat in the center, their pale skin almost glowing under the chamber lights. They had called for this meeting. Speaker X9 of the Vorkani stood up. His voice was cold and precise, like a machine reading data. Fellow council members, we face a crisis. The human species has grown too powerful, too influential. They control critical technologies, mediate our conflicts, and manage our most important systems. This dependency threatens galactic stability. Lisa felt her jaw tighten. She had expected this, but hearing it still hit hard. The humans had spent 3 centuries helping other species, solving their problems, keeping their peace. Now that help was being called a threat. The humans have proven they cannot be trusted with such power, X9 continued. Their technology is beyond our understanding. Their military capabilities are unmatched. Their economic influence touches every system. They have made themselves indispensable, and that is dangerous. A delegate from the Kepler Mining Collective spoke up, his voice rough and gravelly. The humans have never threatened anyone. They have only helped us. That is exactly the problem, replied X9. Help can become control. Dependence leads to slavery. We must act before it is too late. Lisa watched as other delegates began to murmur agreement. The Crystalline Empire's representative, a being made of living crystal, flashed colors that her translator read as support. The Tau Collective's hive mind buzzed in what sounded like approval. The Zentari Council leader called for order again. Speaker X9, present your proposal. X9 activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Images of human technology, human ships, human colonies appeared in the air. We propose a 3-part solution. First, all human. Advanced technology must be surrendered to Council oversight. Second, human military forces must be disbanded and replaced with multi-species peacekeeping units. Third, the human genome must be modified to limit their intellectual capabilities to galactic standard levels. The chamber fell silent. Lisa felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. They wanted to lobotomize her entire species. Dr. Davis leaned forward and whispered, "They want to make us less human." Commander Stone's hand moved to his sidearm, then stopped. Starting a fight here would prove their point about human danger. The Zentari leader looked at Lisa. Ambassador Carter, you may respond. Lisa stood up slowly. She had given thousands of speeches in this chamber, negotiated countless deals, smoothed over countless conflicts. She had always found a way to make things work. But this was different. This was not a negotiation. This was surrender or destruction. Honored council members, she began, her voice steady despite the anger building inside her. For 300 years, humanity has served this galaxy faithfully. We have built your stations, healed your sick, mediated your wars, and solved your problems. We have asked for nothing but the right to exist alongside you as equals. She paused, looking around the chamber. Some delegates would not meet her eyes. Others stared at her with what looked like pity. You speak of our technology as if it were a weapon pointed at your hearts. But when the Andromedan plague threatened to wipe out 12 species, it was human medicine that saved them. When the quantum storms made travel impossible, it was human engineering that built new navigation systems. When the hegemony and the alliance went to war, it was human diplomats who brought them peace. More delegates were looking uncomfortable. Now, they remembered these events. They remembered needing human help. You call our capabilities dangerous, Lisa continued. But the only danger we have ever posed was to ignorance, disease, and conflict. We have made the galaxy a better place. Vex9 interrupted her. Pretty words, Ambassador. But words do not change facts. Humanity has become too powerful. The Council has decided. You have 72 hours to accept our terms or face complete isolation from galactic society. No trade, no communication, no contact of any kind. Your species will be alone in the universe. Lisa looked around the chamber one more time. She saw fear in some faces, greed in others, and cold calculation in most. These beings had decided that humanity was a threat simply because humanity was successful. They preferred a weaker galaxy to one where humans were strong, she thought. About all the humans scattered across the galaxy. Scientists working to cure diseases on alien worlds. Engineers maintaining the systems that kept entire civilizations running. Peacekeepers standing between warring species. Doctors saving lives. In hospitals they had built with their own hands, she thought about Captain Jake Morrison, waiting in orbit with the human fleet. Good people doing good work, now being told they were too dangerous to exist as they were. Lisa Carter had been Earth's diplomat for 12 years. She had always found a way to compromise, to make deals, to keep the peace. But some things could not be compromised. Speaker Vex9 honored council members, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. The human race rejects your ultimatum. We reject your demands. We reject your authority over our lives and our future. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted, argued, and demanded explanations. Lisa waited for quiet, then spoke her final words as Earth's ambassador to the galaxy. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all galactic affairs. We are going home. You wanted us gone. Your wish is granted. She turned and walked toward the exit, her team following behind her. The massive doors slid open, and Lisa Carter stepped through them. For the last time, behind her, the galaxy began to realize what it had just lost. Commander Kate Hughes stood on the bridge of the transport ship Unity, watching the evacuation of Research Station Omega-7 through the main view screen. The massive facility hung in space like a silver flower, its multiple arms stretching out into the void. For 30 years, it had been humanity's premier science outpost in the Kepler sector. Now it was being torn apart, piece by piece. How many stations left? She asked her second-in-command. Lieutenant Ben Clark checked his tablet. 43 research facilities, 18 peacekeeping bases, and 97 trade outposts across this sector alone. We have teams working on all of them. Kate nodded, her face grim. The order had come down from Earth Command 6 hours after Ambassador Carter walked out of the Galactic Council. Every human installation, every piece of human technology, every human presence in alien space was to be removed or destroyed. Nothing was to be left behind that could benefit the species that had just threatened to lobotomize humanity. On the view screen, human engineers in spacesuits were carefully removing quantum computers from the station's core. These machines could process calculations that would take alien computers centuries to complete. Dr. Alex Turner had been very clear in his instructions. If the equipment could not be moved, it was to be reduced to scrap metal. Commander, we're getting another transmission from the Kepler Mining Collective, the communications officer reported. Put it through. The face of Administrator Zek Prime appeared on the screen. The alien looked worried, his usually calm demeanor cracked with stress. Commander Hughes, please reconsider. Our mining operations depend on your engineering support. Without human maintenance, our equipment will fail within months. Kate had heard this same plea from dozens of alien administrators over the past week. The galaxy was finally realizing how much they depended on human expertise. Administrator, my orders are clear. All human personnel are to be evacuated immediately. But the quantum drills require human calibration. Our people do not understand the technology. You trained our engineers, but they need ongoing support. You should have thought about that before your government voted to support the Vorkani ultimatum, Kate replied coldly. This conversation is over. She cut the transmission and turned back to watch the evacuation. Human workers were now removing the station's medical equipment. The advanced surgical units and disease scanners had saved millions of alien lives over the years. Now they were being packed into cargo containers for the journey back to human space. Dr. Sarah Park, the station's chief medical officer, supervised the removal of her equipment with visible sadness. She had spent 15 years developing new treatments for alien diseases that human doctors had never seen before. Her research had created cures for 12 different plagues and had saved entire species from extinction. Doctor, are you all right? Kate asked as Sarah came onto the bridge. I just got word from the hospital on Centauri Prime, Sarah said, her voice tight with emotion. They're begging us to leave behind the cancer treatment units. They have 300 patients in the middle of therapy. Without the equipment, those people will die. Kate felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. She had been a soldier for 20 years, but this was different. This was not about winning or losing a battle. This was about watching civilizations slowly fall apart because they had decided they did not want human help anymore. Our orders are clear, Doctor. Nothing gets left behind. Sarah nodded, understanding but not liking it. What about the patients? The Centauri government voted to support the ultimatum. They made their choice. On the far side of the sector, Captain Tony Miller was overseeing the evacuation of Peacekeeping Base Delta 5. The base had been humanity's coordination center for maintaining peace between the warring hegemony and alliance factions. For 2 centuries, human peacekeepers had kept these two species from destroying each other. Sir, we're getting reports of skirmishes along the neutral zone, Sergeant Amy Foster reported. The hegemony is moving ships toward Alliance territory. Tony was not surprised. The peace treaty between the two species had been negotiated by humans, enforced by humans, and maintained by humans. With the peacekeepers leaving, old hatreds were already surfacing. Not our problem anymore, Sergeant. Continue the evacuation. The base's command center had been the nerve center for peacekeeping operations across 7 systems. Human officers had used advanced computers to track ship movements, predict conflict zones, and coordinate diplomatic solutions before violence could break out. Now those computers were being loaded onto transport ships. Lieutenant Carol Brown, the base intelligence officer, watched her alien counterparts with growing concern. Sir, the local commanders don't know how to read the conflict prediction models. Without our computers, they're flying blind. Then they'll learn, Tony replied, or they'll fight. Either way, it's not our responsibility anymore. Back on the Unity, Kate received a priority message from Earth Command. The face of Admiral Jim Norton appeared on her private screen. Commander Hughes, what's your status? Evacuation proceeding on schedule, Admiral. We should have all personnel and equipment out of the Kepler sector within 2 weeks. Good, I need you to accelerate the timeline. We're getting reports of alien military movements throughout the galaxy. Some species are talking about taking human installations by force before we can evacuate them. Kate felt anger flare in her chest. They're going to try to steal our technology? It looks that way. The Crystalline Empire has moved 3 fleets toward human research stations in their territory. The Tau Collective is demanding that we leave all medical equipment behind for humanitarian reasons. What are our orders? If any alien force tries to interfere with the evacuation, you are authorized to defend yourselves. But your primary mission remains the same. Get our people and our technology out of alien space. Nothing gets left behind. Understood, Admiral. The Transmission ended, and Kate turned back to the evacuation. Through the view screen, she could see the skeleton of Research Station Omega-7. The facility that had once been home to 3,000 human scientists was now nothing but empty metal framework. Everything valuable had been removed or destroyed. Doctor Turner's voice came over the ship's communication system. All teams, this is Turner. Final sweep complete. Station Omega-7 is now clear of all human technology. Initiating demolition charges in 30 seconds. Kate watched as small explosions lit up the station's remaining structure. What had taken decades to build was reduced to drifting scrap in minutes. The aliens who had demanded humanity's submission would find nothing useful in the wreckage. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On 847 worlds, human colonies were packing up and leaving. Research stations were being stripped of equipment. Peacekeeping bases were abandoning their posts. Trade outposts were closing their doors forever. The species that had grown comfortable with human support were about to learn what life was like without it. Lieutenant Clark approached Kate with another report. Commander, we just received word from the agricultural stations. The alien farmers are panicking. They don't know how to operate the automated systems without human technicians. Kate looked out at the stars, thinking about all the worlds that would soon be struggling to feed themselves. They made their choice, Lieutenant. Now they get to live with it. The Great Withdrawal had begun, and there would be no going back. 2 years after the human withdrawal, Counselor Vex Prime of the Hegemony stared at the reports covering his desk. Each document told the same story of failure and collapse. His empire, which had ruled over 37 star systems for 5 centuries, was falling apart. The latest report came from System 12, where a trade dispute between local colonies had exploded into open warfare. For 300 years, human mediators had handled such conflicts with quiet efficiency. Now, without their intervention, old grudges were turning into blood feuds. Sir, we have another situation, his aide announced as she entered the office. Her face was pale with stress. The mining operations in the Outer Rim have completely shut down. Vex Prime set down the report he was reading. Explain. The quantum extractors require daily calibration. The human engineers who trained our people only covered basic maintenance. When the systems started failing last month, our technicians tried to fix them. She paused. 3 mining ships exploded. 12 others are now beyond repair. The counselor felt a familiar weight in his stomach. This same conversation had happened dozens of times over the past 2 years. Critical systems failing, alien technicians unable to fix them, and no human experts to call for help. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Nina Ross sat in Earth's Strategic Command Center, monitoring communications from alien space. The massive room was filled with screens showing data streams from across the galaxy. What she saw was a civilization in freefall. Admiral, we're picking up distress signals from the Zephyrian sector, Lieutenant Dan Moore reported. It looks like their atmospheric processors are failing. Nina pulled up the data on her screen. The Zephyrian homeworld had been terraformed by humans 2 centuries ago. The planet's original atmosphere was toxic to most life forms, but human technology had converted it into a garden world that supported billions of inhabitants. How bad is it? She asked. Atmospheric oxygen levels are dropping by 2% each month. Their technicians have tried to repair the processors, but they don't understand the quantum chemistry involved. At this rate, the planet will be uninhabitable. Within 3 years, Nina made a note in her log. Another world that would soon be empty because its inhabitants had demanded humanity's submission. The irony was not lost on her. Dr. Paul Garcia, head of Earth's Analysis Division, entered the command center with his daily briefing. His job was to track the collapse of galactic civilization and predict future developments. It was depressing work. Admiral, the situation is accelerating, he began. We're now tracking active conflicts in 47 systems. The Crystalline Empire and the Tau Collective have declared war over the abandoned human trade routes. The Vorkani client species are in open rebellion. What about the Vorkani themselves? Nina asked. That's the interesting part. Speaker Vex-9 was executed by his own people last week. They blamed him for the current crisis. The new leadership is trying to restore order, but they don't have the tools to do it. Paul activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from above. Red dots marked active conflicts, yellow showed systems in crisis, and green indicated stable regions. The map was mostly red and yellow now. The cascade effect is exactly what we predicted, Paul continued. Species that depended on human mediation are fighting each other. Worlds that relied on human technology are suffering system failures. Trade networks that humans managed are collapsing. Nina studied the display. How many dead so far? Conservative estimate, 50 billion across all species. And that number is growing every day. Meanwhile, on the former Vorkani client world of Nexus 7, rebellion was tearing the planet apart. The local population had endured Vorkani rule for decades only because human peacekeepers had prevented the worst abuses. With the peacekeepers gone, old hatreds had exploded into violence. Governor Klex watched from his fortress as explosions lit up the capital city. His security forces were losing ground to the rebels, and he had no reinforcements coming. The Vorkani Home Fleet was dealing with rebellions on 12 other worlds. "Sir, we could try negotiating with the rebel leaders," his military advisor suggested. Klex laughed bitterly. "Negotiate? I don't know how to negotiate. The humans always handled that. I only know how to give orders and expect obedience." The fortress shook as another explosion rocked the building. Through his window, Klex could see rebel forces moving through the streets. Soon they would reach his position, and then his long rule would come to an end. Back on Earth, Admiral Nina Ross received a priority transmission from deep space. The sender was Captain Steve Blake of the exploration vessel New Dawn, humanity's last ship in alien territory. He had been conducting a final survey of human installations when the withdrawal began. "Admiral, I'm sending you footage from the Zentari system," Blake's voice came through the speakers. "You need to see this." The main screen filled with images of Zentari Prime, the former seat of the Galactic Council. The planet that had once been home to 47 different species diplomatic missions was now a wasteland. Massive storms raged across continents that had been peaceful for centuries. "The terraforming systems failed 6 months ago," Blake explained. "The planet's weather control network was too complex for the remaining alien technicians to maintain. Now the climate is reverting to its natural state." Nina watched as hurricane-force winds tore across cities that had housed millions of beings. The elegant spires of the council complex were crumbling under the assault of uncontrolled weather patterns. "Estimated casualties?" she asked. "Unknown, but the evacuation ships can only carry a fraction of the population. Most of the inhabitants are trapped on the surface." The footage switched to show refugee convoys struggling through the storms. Beings from dozens of different species huddled together in vehicles that were breaking down without human-made replacement. PARTS Dr. Garcia added his analysis. Zentari Prime was completely dependent on human atmospheric engineering. Without constant maintenance, the terraforming systems were always going to fail. The planet was never naturally habitable for most of the species living there. Nina felt no satisfaction watching the collapse of the world that had hosted humanity's humiliation. These were not evil beings suffering for their crimes. They were ordinary people paying the price for their leaders' pride and fear. "Any word from the surviving council members?" she asked. "They're scattered across the galaxy, trying to hold their own territories together. The formal Galactic Council no longer exists. Each species is focused on its own survival now." The communication system chimed with another incoming message. This one came from the Kepler Mining Collective, one of the few alien organizations that had opposed the ultimatum against humanity. "This is Administrator Zek Prime requesting emergency assistance," the message began. "Our mining operations have completely collapsed. Asteroid extraction platforms are failing daily. We estimate total system shutdown within 6 months. We are prepared to offer full territorial concessions in exchange for technical support." Nina looked at the message request queue. There were hundreds of similar pleas from across the galaxy. Species that had demanded humanity's submission were now begging for help. What should I tell them, Admiral? Lieutenant Moore asked. Nina thought about Ambassador Carter's final words to the Galactic Council. Tell them that humanity is no longer available for consultation. They wanted us gone. We're gone. The lieutenant nodded and began composing the standard rejection message that Earth had been sending for 2 years. Paul Garcia updated his projections on the main display. At current rate of decline, I estimate complete collapse of galactic civilization within 8 more years. Some species may survive, but organized interstellar society is finished. Nina Ross looked out at the stars and wondered if humanity had made the right choice. The galaxy was dying without them, but it had chosen its own path when it threatened to destroy what made humans human. The cracks had become chasms, and there was no going back. 5 years had passed since humanity walked away from the galaxy, and Fleet Admiral Carol White stood in Earth's strategic command watching civilizations burn. The main display showed real-time updates from across the galaxy, and every screen told the same story. The universe that had once been held together by human expertise was tearing itself apart. Admiral, we have confirmation that the Tau Collective has collapsed completely, reported Major Lisa Reed, her intelligence officer. Their hive mind network depended on quantum communication arrays that only humans knew how to maintain. When the arrays failed, the collective fractured into millions of individual minds that couldn't coordinate with each other. Carol nodded. Grimly, the Tau Collective had been one of the galaxy's most stable civilizations for over 1,000 years. Their shared consciousness had made them incredibly efficient at managing resources and avoiding conflicts. Now they were just another extinct species. What about the Meridian Alliance? She asked. War with the Crystalline Empire entered its 3rd year last month. Both sides are using weapons they don't fully understand. The Crystallines accidentally poisoned their own homeworld with radiation. The Alliance triggered a chain reaction that destroyed 2 of their core systems. Carol walked to the tactical display that showed the current state of galactic conflicts. Red zones marked active warfare, orange showed regions in collapse, and yellow indicated areas with failing infrastructure. Only a few green spots remained. Mostly isolated systems with simple technology that didn't require human maintenance. Colonel Sam Mitchell entered the command center with his daily intelligence report. His job was to monitor communications from alien space and track the ongoing collapse. What he found grew worse each day. Admiral, I have updates from 17 sectors, he began. The Andromedan medical crisis has reached critical levels. Their hospitals are shutting down because they can't maintain the surgical equipment. Death rates from treatable diseases have increased by 800%. Any attempts to reverse engineer the equipment? They tried for 3 years. Every attempt ended in equipment destruction or patient deaths. The technology is too advanced for their current understanding. Sam activated a holographic display showing the Andromedan system. What had once been a thriving civilization of 12 billion beings was now scattered refugee camps on barely habitable worlds. The Andromeda. Prime evacuation is almost complete, he continued. The planet's life support systems failed last month. The survivors are being moved to agricultural worlds, but those systems are failing too. Human-designed farming equipment is breaking down without maintenance. Carol studied the refugee statistics. Entire species were becoming nomads, moving from one failing world to another in search of basic survival needs. The galaxy that had demanded humanity's submission was learning what life was like without the infrastructure humans had built and maintained. What about the Vorkani? She asked. Sam's expression darkened. The Vorkani Empire officially ceased to exist 2 months ago. The client species rebellion succeeded on 34 worlds. The remaining Vorkani population is scattered across the galaxy as refugees. Speaker X9's successor was killed in a bombing last week. The irony was bitter. The species that had pushed hardest for humanity's submission was now extinct as a political entity. Their authoritarian control had only worked because human peacekeepers had prevented the worst abuses. Without that restraint, they're subject Peoples had risen up and destroyed them. Dr. Emma Parker, head of Earth's Xenological Studies Department, joined the briefing with her analysis of the galactic situation. Her job was to predict which species would survive the collapse and which would join the growing list of extinct civilizations. Admiral, I've completed my assessment of remaining viable civilizations, she began. 37 species had diplomatic representation in the Galactic Council 5 years ago. 19 are now extinct. 14 have regressed to pre-space flight technology levels. 8 are engaged in wars that will likely destroy them within the next 2 years. That leaves 6, Carol calculated. 6 species that might survive in some form, yes, but none of them retain the technological or organizational capacity for interstellar civilization. They're reduced to isolated planetary societies focused entirely on basic survival. Emma activated a timeline display showing the progression of collapse. The cascade effect has accelerated beyond our worst predictions. Each failing system triggers failures in connected systems. Trade networks collapse, which causes resource shortages, which leads to conflicts, which destroy more infrastructure. Carol examined the data. How long until complete collapse? Conservative estimate? 3 more years. The remaining technological infrastructure will fail, isolated worlds will lose contact with each other, and galactic civilization will effectively end. The communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. The signal was coming from deep space, transmitted on old human emergency frequencies. This is Refugee Fleet Omega requesting immediate assistance, the message began. The voice belonged to a Zentari diplomat Carol, recognized from old council recordings. We represent the survivors of 17 different species. Our ships are failing, our life support systems are breaking down, and we have nowhere to go. We are prepared to accept any terms for sanctuary in human space. Carol listened to the desperate plea. The message described a fleet of over 300 ships carrying the last survivors from worlds that had supported the ultimatum against humanity. They had been traveling for 8 months, moving from system to system as each potential refuge collapsed or turned them away. They're offering complete surrender, Colonel Mitchell noted. Political autonomy, territorial rights, technological access, anything we want. How many beings are we talking about? Carol asked. According to their transmission, approximately 2 million survivors from species that once numbered in the billions. Carol considered the request. These were not the leaders who had demanded humanity's submission. These were ordinary people, whose governments had made choices that doomed them. Children who had been born after the human withdrawal. Scientists and artists and farmers who had never participated in galactic politics. What's our official policy on refugee requests? She asked. Major Reed consulted her files. Earth Council Directive 2847. All requests for sanctuary are to be denied, no exceptions. Humanitarian aid is prohibited. Contact with alien survivors is forbidden. The policy was harsh but clear. Humanity had made its choice to isolate itself completely from galactic affairs. The suffering of alien species, however tragic, was not their responsibility. Carol activated her command console and composed a response to the refugee fleet. Refugee Fleet Omega, this is Earth Defense Command. Your request for sanctuary is denied. Human space is closed to all alien vessels. Any attempt to enter our territory will be met with force. She paused before sending the message, thinking about the 2 million beings who would die when their ships finally failed. Then she thought about Speaker X9 demanding that humanity surrender its technology and submit to genetic modification. She sent the message. The communication system continued to chime, with similar pleas throughout the day. Survivor groups from across the galaxy were sending desperate requests for aid, sanctuary, or even basic technical advice. Each message was met with the same response. Humanity was no longer available. Dr. Parker updated her projections as new data came in. Admiral, based on current trends, I estimate fewer than 50 million sentient beings will survive in the galaxy outside human space. That's down from over 2 trillion at the time of the withdrawal. Carol looked at the numbers. A genocide beyond imagination was taking place across the galaxy, not through deliberate murder, but through the simple removal of the systems that had kept galactic civilization functioning. Any second thoughts, Admiral? Colonel Mitchell asked. Quietly, Carol thought about the question. 50 billion beings had already died because the galaxy had decided it could not tolerate human success. 2 trillion more would follow them into extinction because their leaders had chosen pride over survival. The galaxy made its choice, she replied. They wanted to be free of human influence. Now they are. Outside the command center, Earth's population was growing rapidly as humans returned from across the galaxy. The technology and knowledge they brought back was advancing human civilization at an incredible pace. While the galaxy died, humanity was entering a golden age. The species that had demanded humanity's submission had gotten exactly what they asked for. They were finally free of human control. They were free to die. 10 years had passed since humanity walked away from the galaxy when the transmission reached Earth. Ambassador Ray Phillips sat in his retirement home on Mars, tending to his garden, when the priority message arrived on his old diplomatic communication device. He had not heard from alien space in 5 years. The device crackled to life with a weak signal. The voice that came through was barely recognizable as Speaker X7 of what remained of the Galactic Council. Ree remembered him as a proud Zentari diplomat who had voted to support the ultimatum against humanity. Former Ambassador Phillips, this is an emergency transmission to any human authority willing to listen. The Galactic Council formally requests immediate negotiations with Earth government. We are prepared to accept any terms for the return of human assistance to the galaxy. Ray stared at the device. The voice was broken, desperate, nothing like the confident alien diplomats he had once negotiated with. He activated his secure link to Earth and forwarded the message to President Helen Brooks. Within hours, Ray found himself on a transport ship heading back to Earth for the first time in 3 years. The Earth he saw from orbit was transformed. New cities floated in space around the planet. Massive industrial complexes stretched across the moon. Humanity had used the technology and resources brought back from the galaxy to advance their civilization beyond anything they had achieved. Before President Brooks met him in the newly built Global Command Center, a structure that dwarfed the old United Nations building. The president was a woman Ray had known when she was just a junior diplomat. Now she commanded humanity's response to a dying galaxy. Ray, good to see you again, she said as he entered her office. I assume you've seen the intelligence reports. Ray nodded. The galaxy is finished. How many species are left? 12 confirmed viable populations. Maybe 8 more struggling to survive on isolated worlds. Everything else is gone. She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Where once there had been thousands of inhabited systems, now only scattered green dots remained. The vast majority of the galaxy was dark, empty of intelligent life. The message I received mentioned negotiations, Ray said. That's why you're here. The remaining alien governments want to discuss terms for human return to galactic affairs. They're offering complete surrender. Dr. Grace Anderson, Earth's Director of Technological Development, joined the meeting with her assessment of humanity's current capabilities. The 10 years of isolation had transformed human civilization in ways the galaxy could never have imagined. Mr. Phillips, you should understand what humanity has become during the withdrawal, she began. The technology we brought back from failed alien civilizations, combined with our own research, has advanced us by centuries. We now possess capabilities that exceed anything the galaxy has ever seen. She activated another display showing human achievements. Faster-than-light communication networks that could connect any point in human space instantly. Terraforming. Technology that could make any world habitable in months instead of decades. Medical advances that had effectively eliminated death from disease or aging. Our military capabilities have grown as well, she continued. We can build fleets that make our old peacekeeping forces look like toys. we can destroy planets or create them. We are no longer the junior partners in galactic civilization. Ray absorbed this information. What are the aliens offering? President Brooks pulled up the formal proposal that had arrived along with Speaker X7's message. Complete territorial autonomy for all human-claimed space, recognition of human authority, of former alien systems, unlimited access to all remaining alien technology and resources, and formal acknowledgement of human superiority in all galactic affairs. They want us to be their rulers, Ray realized. That's exactly what they want. They're offering to become our subjects in exchange for us rebuilding their civilizations. Dr. Emma Parker, the xenobiologist who had predicted the galactic collapse, presented her analysis of the remaining alien populations. The species that survived are not the same. Ones that demanded our submission 10 years ago. The Vorkani are extinct. The Tau Collective is gone. The crystalline empire destroyed itself. What's left are the few species that oppose the ultimatum or remain neutral. Ray studied the data. So the ones who wanted to destroy us are already dead. Most of them, yes. The survivors are mainly species that tried to maintain good relations with humanity. The Kepler Mining Collective, parts of the Andromedan medical community, some Centauri diplomatic families. They represent maybe 2% of the galaxy's original population. Colonel Sam Mitchell, now promoted to general, provided the military assessment. Sir, our analysis indicates that even if we wanted to help the survivors, reconstruction would take centuries. The infrastructure damage is too extensive. Most worlds have reverted to pre-industrial conditions. The technology needed to rebuild. Civilization exists only in human space now. President Brooks looked at Ray. The question is whether we have any moral obligation to help them. These survivors didn't vote for our destruction, but they also didn't stop it. Ray thought about his years as Earth's ambassador to the galaxy. He remembered the pride and fear in alien eyes when they looked at humanity. They had been terrified of human success and had chosen to destroy rather than accept it. What does Earth want to do? He asked. That's what we're here to decide. We have 3 options. First, we ignore them completely and let the remaining aliens die out naturally. Second, we provide limited humanitarian aid but maintain our isolation. Third, we return to galactic affairs as the dominant power. Dr. Anderson presented the implications of each choice. If we ignore them, the galaxy becomes essentially empty except for us. If we provide aid, we risk creating dependency again. If we return as rulers, we control galactic recovery but take responsibility for billions of potential lives. General Mitchell added his perspective. From a security standpoint, the threat to humanity is over. The species that wanted to lobotomize US are extinct. The survivors pose no military threat. We could occupy every remaining inhabited system with a single fleet. President Brooks activated a communication link to the surviving alien governments. Mr. Phillips, I want you to hear their formal offer directly. The screen filled with the faces of 12 alien leaders, representing the last organized governments in the galaxy. Ray recognized some of them from his diplomatic days. They looked older, worn down by years of struggle and loss. Speaker X7 of the Centauri spoke first. Ambassador Phillips, we formally request human intervention to prevent the complete collapse of galactic civilization. We offer unconditional surrender to human authority in exchange for reconstruction assistance. Administrator Kex Prime of the Kepler Mining Collective followed. Humanity, we acknowledge that our galaxy cannot function without your guidance. We request to become protectorates under human rule. One by one, the remaining alien leaders offered their worlds, their resources, and their peoples to humanity. They begged for the chance to serve the species they had once tried to destroy. When the transmission ended, President Brooks turned to Ray. So what do you think? Do we save them? Ray looked at the desperate alien faces still displayed on the screen, then at the data showing humanity's incredible advancement during the years of isolation. The galaxy that had demanded humanity's submission was now begging to become humanity's empire. The question isn't whether we can save them, Ray said slowly. The question is whether the galaxy that emerges will be worth saving. President Brooks nodded. Exactly. And that decision will determine the future of the entire galaxy. Outside the command center, human ships prepared for whatever choice their leaders would make. The species that had walked away from the galaxy now held its fate. In their hands, the final decision was yet to come. 20 years after humanity walked away from the galaxy, Admiral Ryan Clark led the largest fleet in human history back into alien space. The decision had been made after months of debate on Earth. Humanity would return, but not as the helpful junior partners they had once been. They would return as conquerors. The fleet that emerged from hyperspace above the former Vorkani homeworld was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 200 ships bristled with weapons that could crack, planets and shields that could withstand the heart of a star. The technology gap between humans and aliens had become an unbridgeable chasm. Captain Joe Barnes commanded the lead assault ship as it approached the planet below. What had once been the capital of a mighty empire was now a collection of primitive settlements scattered across a dying world. The orbital defense platforms had failed years ago, leaving the planet defenseless. "Captain, we're receiving surrender transmissions from the surface," his communications officer reported. "Multiple groups are competing to be the first to submit to human authority." Joe studied the planet through his viewscreen. Smoke rose from several cities where different factions were fighting for the right to serve humanity. The species that had once threatened to lobotomize the human race was now eager to become human slaves. "Open a channel to all surface settlements," Joe ordered. His voice would be transmitted across the planet, reaching every surviving alien. "This world is now under the protection of the human dominion. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction. Any cooperation will be rewarded with survival." The response was immediate. Leaders from every settlement began transmitting their surrender, offering resources, information, and services to their new human masters. The transformation from proud empire to willing subjects was complete. On Earth, President Claire Adams prepared for her address to the reformed Galactic Council. The council chamber had been rebuilt on New Terra, a world that humans had terraformed specifically to serve as the capital of their new empire. Unlike the old council where humans had been one voice among many, this council existed solely to serve human interests. The chamber was smaller than the old one, reflecting the reality that most alien species were extinct. 12 representatives sat in chairs designed for their comfort, but positioned to look up at the human throne that dominated the room. President Adams entered wearing the ceremonial robes of the human dominion. She was no longer the leader of one species among many. She was the empress of the galaxy, and every being in the chamber existed at her pleasure. "Representatives of the surviving species," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 20 years ago, your predecessors demanded that humanity surrender its technology and submit to genetic modification. Today, you offer yourselves as our subjects. This change in attitude has been noted. The alien representatives sat in perfect silence. They had learned that interrupting humans was not permitted in the new order. "The galaxy that existed before is gone forever," Adams continued. "Your species destroyed it when you chose pride over wisdom. What rises from its ashes will be built according to human vision and human values." She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Human territory was marked in blue and covered nearly half of all inhabited systems. Green zones showed alien protectorates under human protection. Red areas indicated worlds under direct human occupation. "Some of you have earned the right to govern yourselves under human oversight," Adams explained. The Kepler Mining Collective maintained good relations with humanity and opposed the ultimatum. They will be granted protectorate status and limited self-governance. Administrator Kex Prime of the Kepler Collective bowed his head in gratitude. His species would survive with dignity, serving human interests, but maintaining their own culture and basic freedoms. "Others will face a different fate," Adams continued, looking at the Zentari representative. The Zentari government supported the ultimatum against humanity. While the current population bears no direct responsibility for that decision, The consequences remain. Zentari worlds will be administered directly by human governors. The Zentari representative said nothing, but his translator picked up the subtle changes in his body language that indicated acceptance of his species' fate. Ambassador Lucy Thompson, humanity's new Minister of Alien Affairs, provided details of the new galactic order. Each surviving world will be classified according to its past relationship with humanity and its current value to the Dominion. Some will enjoy considerable autonomy. Others will serve as labor colonies for human expansion projects. Dr. Grace Anderson, now Director of Galactic Development, outlined humanity's plans for reconstruction. We will rebuild galactic civilization according to human specifications. New trade routes will connect human worlds first, alien worlds second. New technology will be distributed based on loyalty to human authority. New colonies will be established. Under human direction. The scope of human ambition was staggering. They planned to terraform 1,000 worlds, build new cities that would dwarf the old galactic capitals, and create a transportation network that would make every corner of the galaxy accessible to human control. General Sam Mitchell explained the military structure of the new order. Human defense forces will maintain peace throughout the galaxy. Alien species are forbidden from possessing weapons beyond those needed for basic security. Any conflict between alien populations will be resolved by human arbitration. The message was clear. The galaxy would have peace, but it would be peace enforced by human power and serving human interests. As the council session ended, President Adams delivered her final words to the assembled representatives. Your species once asked what would happen if humanity became too powerful. You feared that we would dominate the galaxy and reduce you to servants. Your fears have become reality, but not because we sought dominion. You gave us no choice. She paused, looking at each alien representative in turn. You demanded our submission and threatened our destruction. In response, we gave you exactly what you claimed to want. We removed ourselves from your affairs completely. The galaxy that emerged from that decision is your creation, not ours. The chamber remained silent as the weight of her words settled on the alien delegates. The old galaxy is dead because you killed it, Adams continued. The new galaxy will be built because we choose to build it. You will have a place in that galaxy, but you will never again have the power to threaten humanity. As the alien representatives filed out of the chamber, they understood their new reality. Humanity had become everything the galaxy had feared. But only after the galaxy had destroyed itself trying to prevent it. Captain Joe Barnes watched from orbit as human administrators took control of the former Vorkani capital. Construction ships were already beginning work on new facilities that would transform the primitive settlement into a modern city serving human needs. The transformation was happening on dozens of worlds. Human efficiency and technology were rebuilding galactic civilization in months, what would have taken the aliens decades to accomplish. But this civilization served human purposes and operated under human rules. The species that had once commanded humanity to kneel now existed only because humanity allowed it. The galaxy had learned that humans were indeed too powerful to challenge. The irony was perfect. In trying to prevent human dominance, the galaxy had guaranteed it. By demanding humanity's submission, they had created humanity's empire. 20 years ago, humans had walked away and the galaxy had known it was over. Now humans had returned and the galaxy belonged to them forever.